idea for the show.
I still don't know what the idea is.
It's about nothing.
Right.
Everybody's doing something. We'll do nothing.
They say, what's your show about? I say nothing.
There you go.
I think you may have something here.
Cross Coast Bias presents the League About Nothing podcast.
All right, everyone, welcome back for our Week 6 recap. Got a fun show this week. We got some trades to talk about, some waiver claims to talk about, a couple injuries that unfortunately happened. Pretty low scores across the league for everyone except for Judd this week. But before we get to the matchup recaps, let's talk about these trades. We had 5 trades take place since last week. 4 of them took place on the same day, and the 5th took place the very next day. So it was all a bit of a flurry happening at once.
Yeah, that tends to happen in this league. I don't know that it's unique to this league either, but generally you'll see one trade and everyone else will see the trade notification hit the chat, and then they'll start working on their own deals.
Now you say that, but I think we can trace this back to a very specific pair of individuals that were involved in 4 of these 5 trades. I will not name these individuals, not to call anyone out.
Do they host a podcast about this?
It's quite possible that they do. So the first trade we had last, what was this, the 11th? So that puts it last Wednesday, just after we had our waivers run. JMC acquired Allen Robinson and Trenton Irwin for a 2024 4th round pick getting sent my way.
Are you going to talk about your own trade first?
No, I hate talking about my own trades. This has been well established.
Fine. Once again, I'll carry the show. Do 100% of the analysis. Oh, what a terrible trade. I can't believe that either of you agreed to this. It's disgusting. Why would you do this? Nobody wants any of these players involved. Please get this trade off of my screen.
This is why it was for a 4th round pick.
That's fair. It's a 4th round pick. I mean, honestly, what are you going to get for a 4th round pick? At least these 2 guys are playing. You know, Irwin's he's kind of become the Higgins handcuff. He certainly sees a lot of snaps when Higgins is not in there. With JMC's very shallow bench, if his stars are not playing, it's helpful to have their next guy in line. And Robinson as well, he's playing a ton of snaps. He hasn't really given much in the way of production outside of that first week. And we're expecting Deontay back very shortly, if not this week. But he's out there. He's on the field. He's going to run into production at some point. It's a best ball. So it's not like he has to shoehorn him in the lineup. Just sit him on the bench and hope he scores a touchdown once in a while.
Yeah, that was the Irwin thought process there was exactly what you suggested. He's kind of the Higgins handcuff. Higgins has been out. I said, well, handcuffing a wide receiver isn't usually done, but I said, let me see if he's interested. And Irwin has his flashes. He usually does nothing, but when he has a game, he makes the lineup. He's had 3-4 good games over the last year, which
he's had a few spikes. I mean, in this league with this depth, 35-man rosters, it makes sense to handcuff if it's appropriate. It certainly is in this depth of league. It's not like he had to cut any real impactful players to add these 2 guys to his bench. I don't think he cut anyone. I think he just moved some guys to IR that were just sitting on his bench.
So you said get that trade off my screen. We're going to go to a better trade. Your trade, where you acquired your RB1.
Hey, he was my RB1 this week. That's no joke.
It was not. I was not joking. It is,
and that
was sadly true.
And that was with a 75-yard touchdown getting called back.
No, he actually looked all right.
Imagine if there's no penalty on that play. He would have had a huge week.
Yeah. So you acquired Ezekiel Elliott, trading with Criddle. Criddle acquired your 2024 5th round pick. So good value for you. You know, adding Zeke is definitely an improvement to your current running back room.
Listen, I just needed warm bodies this week. I looked at the league's rosters and I said, who has anyone that is going to get some carries. I don't care. I need someone that's going to get 5 to 8 touches. That's better than the zeros I'm probably going to have in my lineup. So I really went roster to roster and asked, hey, what can I get for a 4th or a 5th? Who do you have that you don't mind getting rid of? And, some of these rebuilding teams, Criddle was happy just to get anything for Zeke, because if he doesn't get a 5th, Zeke's probably just going to die on his roster and he's never going to get anything for him. So better to get a pick.
Yeah, better to get some return for the player before, as you said, he dies on your roster. Who knows how long Zeke's got left, but I mean, if he keeps playing like that, he'll stick around for a while. The other news for you on the Zeke front is Ramondre did get dinged up a couple different times in the game this week. He was listed as having treatment for a head injury and an ankle injury. And he finished the game and he looked okay, but if he's banged up, it's going to be Zeke.
Yeah, I was going to say he did come back.
Yeah,
but they don't have any other running backs on the active roster, so it's just the two of them. I mean, I know they got a couple of guys kicking around on the practice squad, but it's pretty much a split between the two.
Oh yes, Kevin Harris will rise again.
Kevin Harris, that's a name that will haunt us forever.
Still in my taxi squad.
There's still a chance for you to involve him in another trade.
Listen, if you want to pay a 5th to lock down that backfield, even on the practice squad, I will accept a 5th for Kevin Harris.
All right, talk to me when he's starting.
And I don't even necessarily mean a 5th round pick, like 5th of vodka, anything. Like, I'm not picky. Whatever you got.
As soon as he gets that starting job, then we can talk.
All right, sounds good. Let's move to the third trade of the day, back on the 11th, wherein Big acquired A.J. Dillon and a 2024 third round pick, that belonging to, or tied to, I guess I should say, Flea's team. And I acquired Big's 2025 second round pick. You know I don't like to analyze my own trades. Let's go to you first.
Well, this is definitely the highest profile trade that we had in this flurry. There was a lot of running backs that got moved, and A.J. Dillon definitely has the most name value. It hasn't been a wonderful start to the year, but he started slow the last few years, and he's really come on down the stretch. So I'm sure that Big is banking on that. He's suffered a rash of running back injuries himself the last couple of weeks, so he really needed to reinforce his running back room. I mean, for a guy like Dillon, that we've seen the ceiling, we know he can be productive. To give up a future second, but to get Dillon and get a third back this year, it's not a huge price to pay.
That was part of the selling point, I think, was that he gets back the capital that he can either use to buy more players this year or to actually, draft whatever he so chooses. He's essentially dropping down that year, but he's getting more flexibility in the short term.
Yeah, and for you're just trying to get points off your roster, so
yep.
You're checking two boxes here. You're getting a higher draft pick. You got to wait an extra year for it, but it's still a higher round. And you're getting Dillon off of your roster, so he's not hurting your draft pick this year.
He wasn't doing that anyways.
Hey, any points is better than nothing.
It's true.
Without Dillon, you're probably going to get zeros in your running back spots.
It's looking more and more likely by the week, which is a good thing. And don't hear what I'm not saying. I don't mind the zeros. I in fact would welcome them, but getting into that second round as opposed to the third is really, for me, I consider the first two rounds the premium rounds, or the second round, the money round, as Big was saying, until he suddenly changed his mind. Apparently the fourth round is now the money round. Who knew? But no, those first 2 round picks generally carry much more weight to them than the third round and on.
And in a league like this, where it's super flex, one, and it's also 2 tight end plus tight end premium, it makes the draft a lot deeper than it would be in a standard league. You have extra quarterbacks and extra tight ends that are going to go early and push other talented skill players down into the second round. We've seen the last few rookie drafts that we've had since this league's been around. There's been some talented players that go in the second rounds.
There's been quite a few, actually. And, the only problem I foresee with this is that if Big's team continues on its current trajectory, it's still going to be just an absolute monster 2 years down the road. And that pick could be fairly late in the second round, but that's a problem for me in 2025, not now. All right, so moving on to our fourth trade of the day. Stop me if you've heard this one before, but there's some crappy running backs and you are involved.
Shocking.
You traded with Benign Rugg. Rugg picked up Craig Reynolds and a 2024 fourth round pick, and you got back Deonta Foreman.
Deonta Foreman was starting because all of the Bears running backs were injured, and Reynolds was not. So I said, here, take this fourth because I need a running back that's going to play this week. I wasn't sure what Reynolds was going to do. He hadn't, generally when Monty is healthy, there's not a lot of carries to go around, even for Gibbs, never mind for Craig Reynolds. Of course, it probably backfired because Monty is also hurt, and now I probably wish I had Craig Reynolds back because he's going to start this week.
I was going to ask, could you give us a point comparison between the two players this week?
There might be another trade in the works. Might need that running back.
The good news for you is that Foreman did outscore Reynolds this week. Foreman had a 7.7, and Craig Reynolds had a 7.05.
Oh, well, so it was definitely worth that fourth round
0.65 on your bench, I might add, because neither one of them could manage to outplay your starring running back group of Ezekiel Elliott and Jordan Mason. So
yeah, like I said, I need running backs. So take as many shots as I could get.
Yeah. Now, in the moment, it looks much better than it does 6 days later. Like you said.
But now we can make fun of me because now we have hindsight.
Oh, we could have done that anyways.
That's probably true.
Yeah, but Reynolds, he's gotten some work this year, even with the games and series that Gibbs and Montgomery have missed, and he hasn't really flashed the way he did towards the end of, what was it, last year, 2 years ago?
It was a couple years ago. He had some run, so a few games towards the end of the year.
He hasn't really done a whole heck of a lot. Yeah, he had a decent game this week, and he looks like he's in line for more, but there's not a whole lot to worry about with this. I don't think either one of these guys is going to come back to haunt you or that fourth round pick.
Yeah, for me, my running back philosophy is essentially, what can you give me this week? What can I expect from you this week and this week only? I'm not worried about future weeks. Forget about future years. I'm worried about what can I get this week only. And Foreman looked like he was going to get a big workload. He did get a decent workload. He unfortunately got stopped on the 1 yard line, and then the great Tyson Bagent pushed it in. If he
just
had
like we all saw coming,
if he had scored that touchdown on that run, then we'd probably have a different story right now.
It's true. Hey, you would have made your lineup for certain. Did I send you the picture? I made the touchdown parlay that I made, the 3-person for $1 whatever. Bets that I almost made.
Jarsal's gambling.
Bets that I almost won.
You just talk daily fantasy betting. You're on your own there. I know nothing.
I was gonna say I don't think anybody wants that.
No, that's the best part. You don't give them advice. You just
talk complain about my bad bets
you've already made. Yeah, exactly. That's quality content. Nobody wants future advice. They want to laugh at your pain.
All right, let's go to our fifth and final trade. Finally, one that doesn't involve one of us. It's just as ugly as all ours, though. We had JMC acquire Tyrod Taylor from Georgia Mike for a 2024 fifth-round pick. Obviously, JMC, the manager of Daniel Jones, so he was going to be down a quarterback this week. Tyrod Taylor filling in for the Giants, and Georgia Mike trying to continue to shed points and add any capital that he can. A trade that makes sense here. Not a whole lot to it. Backup quarterback, fifth-round pick. Taylor will probably get a couple of weeks worth of starts, and then Jones should be back after that.
Yeah, and this is why I was telling you, if you're going to start tanking based on the players that are available in this league, you might as well just pick up every backup quarterback you can, because there's a chance that they're all one injury away from being worth even just a late round pick like this. It's worth something, and in the meantime, they aren't scoring you any points, so it helps with the tanking as well.
Smart move by Georgia Mike to capitalize while he had the opportunity on Taylor. Now, moving over to the waiver wire from last week, we had one claim worth talking about. Brandon Powell got some pretty heavy bidding. The winning bid was yours at $29. We had bids of $24 from Judd, $6 from Flea, and the commish Mel with a $1 bid. So you get the player. Pretty healthy bidding from you and Judd anyways. Seemed like with bids that high from at least two players, you would have expected a little bit more involvement, but that seems to be the way of waivers a lot of the time. Only a couple people usually go in fully on the player. So tell us why you spent up that much on Brandon Powell.
Desperation is a stinky cologne. No, I just lost Justin Jefferson for an indefinite period of time, and I pay way too close attention to the snap shares and depth chart maneuverings and things like that, because this league is so deep that I knew that the top three receivers in Minnesota play heavy snaps between Jordan Addison, Justin Jefferson, and KJ Osborne. They all play a very healthy snap share. They run a lot of three wide. So I figured they were probably going to continue with those sets and just replace Justin Jefferson with Brandon Powell. I didn't expect him to replace his production, obviously, but I expected him to play a heavy amount of snaps. And anyone that's a full-time player in this deep of a league is worth grabbing. I probably paid too much, but I mean, I ended up paying just enough to win the bid. So worked out. We'll see if he actually scores any points for me. But that was essentially the thought process there.
Yeah, not a whole lot of production from him this week, but he did have that 60% snap share. So if that continues, he will score for you at some point.
That's the hope.
And unfortunate for Judd to have that $24 bid when you went up to $29. If you hadn't bid so aggressively, he easily would have outstripped the rest of the field in terms of bidding.
Yeah, he's just being greedy. He doesn't need him. Did you see what his team did this week? Put the screws to the rest of the league. He doesn't need any more help. Stop bidding on waivers, Judd. Let us have something.
All right, so the Fantasy Reaper is back, apparently, killing everyone's team. Another tough week on the injury front across the league. The quarterbacks, I guess, are the big story, even if it doesn't seem like any of them are super serious, super long term. We touched on it briefly earlier. Trevor Lawrence had a knee injury. Doesn't look like he's going to miss this week, but they play Thursday. CJ Beathard's the backup again on my team, available for a 5th round pick to you.
To anyone, I assume.
To anyone, yes, actually. Anyone who's interested, come on down. So we'll keep an eye on Lawrence there. He practiced in a limited fashion today, I believe.
Yeah, he was out there with a bulky brace on, but the fact that he practiced in any fashion is probably a good sign.
The more serious injury at quarterback appears to be Justin Fields, who injured his thumb. I guess it was a dislocation. Don't know why I said it that way. A dislocated thumb. Apparently popped it back in during the game, but couldn't grip the ball after that. So obviously that's going to hamper your ability to throw.
But will it hamper Justin Fields' ability to throw?
I'm going to say probably.
So,
not an expert, but probably.
Sometimes he plays like he has dislocated thumbs. Okay? Sometimes he just looks like that all the time. I don't know.
Sometimes it just kind of always is that way. No, it's fair. We'll see. He doesn't need it to run the ball. He can come out there and
right. And most of the time they only let him throw screen passes anyway.
It's true.
He can probably throw those left-handed.
Although the last couple of weeks they've been going downfield. You've seen DJ Moore with a couple big games.
Oh, you mean the only games that the offense actually looked competent when they actually
when they push the ball downfield?
Yeah. Shocking.
Yeah. Well, playing Denver will do that to you.
Shocking you can't run 70% of your plays as screens and actually move the ball effectively in the NFL.
I was going to say, it's a good thing you added in the NFL to the end of that statement, because I was going to mention that every high school team I've ever seen does almost exclusively that. So Tyson Badgett came in to fill in for Fields there. I guess he was okay. I watched most of it. It wasn't great, but he
All right.
was.
Well, so it was bookend by some pretty awful plays. He started
Yeah.
with a fumble six, and he ended with a game-ending interception. But in between, he looked okay. I mean, he didn't look like a Division II undrafted rookie free agent. He didn't look overwhelmed running around like his hair was on fire. He was calm in the pocket. He delivered some throws down the field. He looked like maybe it won't be a huge downgrade. I mean, obviously he's not Justin
That's
Fields.
damning for Fields right there.
Obviously, he's not Justin Fields, right? But especially for the running backs, you know, he's going to throw. He's not going to run. There's not going to be 15 designed run plays for Tyson Bagent a game. So those are going to be either to the running back or he's going to actually be throwing the ball. So it's possible we get more production from the receivers, even if he's a downgrade on Fields.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll see. I'm sure Mel will be watching closely as the Fields manager.
I would not suggest watching Tyson Bagent closely. That may not be an exciting way to spend your Sunday. There's a good chance that it could end in disaster. He is an undrafted
situation
rookie
as a whole
from Division II Shepherd College.
All right.
I mean, I know he's
here we
the
go.
all-time leader in Division II touchdowns and passing yards.
A couple other quarterback injuries to note. Ryan Tannehill got hurt.
Oh, good thing I just traded for him. Thanks.
Malik Willis came in. It was not pretty.
Speaking of quarterbacks who should not be on an
Flaming out.
NFL field. Pretty sure he got sacked on a third of his snaps.
It was not good. It was, in fact, very bad.
He has the pocket awareness of Stevie Wonder.
Jeez. I would have just said he has the pocket awareness of rookie season Daniel Jones, but yeah, no, that's about right.
Insert Spider-Man meme.
Yeah, so it's the for Tannehill, it's the ankle that he had surgery on previously.
Supposedly he's not going to need surgery again. He's in a boot or a cast right now. They have a bye, but I expect him to miss at least one game, which means good luck. Don't play any of your Titans. It's going to be rough.
So we'll see what happens there. Not great for your Tannehill investment, but we'll see how that goes long term. If Willis is that bad, maybe we see Will Levis come in. Who knows?
That's what I'm wondering. I mean, we saw the Malik Willis experience last year. We saw it now in this game.
Unfortunately,
it didn't look any better than last year. They have a bye week to get ready. It's possible they give Will Levis some extended run during the bye, see what he can do. Might as well find out. I mean, you spend an early second round pick. Tannehill is probably not going to be back next year based on how the contract is structured. Might as well see what you have in Levis before you get to next season.
It's true. Better to take a look at the guy that might be part of your future than the guy who takes a sack on 50% of the dropbacks.
Yeah, I would say that Malik Willis is probably not the long-term answer or the short-term answer there.
No.
So.
Another quarterback with an injury, Jimmy Garoppolo, left the game, was taken to a hospital, loaded into an ambulance, taken to a hospital, but not directly from the field. I guess he has a back injury. Brian Hoyer came in, finished the game for him. The last time Garoppolo missed, we saw Aiden O'Connell fill in. So it'll be interesting to see what happens next week, but hopefully Garoppolo's not too seriously hurt with the back.
Yeah, either way, it's not great for the Raiders skill guys. Neither one of those quarterbacks is much of a threat. There'll be more stacked boxes for poor Josh Jacobs, who's just struggling this year.
Yeah, not that Garoppolo is top of the league or anything, but he's
not Brian Hoyer.
He's a professional. He's gonna move the offense at least. So the big injury news, the far-reaching fantasy implication was with the running backs. Christian McCaffrey with an oblique injury. Jordan Mason did most of the filling in this week. We'll see how long that lasts. It doesn't appear as though it's going to be super long-term, but still an oblique injury is nothing to sneeze at.
Yeah, apparently he's avoided the worst of it, and there's a chance he can play this week. Unfortunately, it's a Monday night game, so we're not going to know until it's probably too late for anyone to do anything in normal lineups. But at least in best ball, we don't have to worry about it. Not that Criddle is really worried about putting up points anymore this year, but it's possible he could try and trade Christian McCaffrey. So he probably needs him healthy for that.
The other big running back injury was Kyron Williams getting hurt. Ankle injury for Kyron Williams. And then also Ronnie Rivers got injured behind him. I honestly don't know what the Rivers injury was, but I know that he's going to IR. So
yeah, it's a PCL. He's got a sprained PCL, so he's going to miss at least a month.
That leaves Zach Evans as the last man standing, except for the fact that the Rams just signed Myles Gaskin off of Minnesota's practice squad and brought back Darrell Henderson off of, I assume, the couch.
And promoted Royce Freeman from their own practice squad as well.
Yeah, so they've added a bunch of bodies. That's about the most you can say for the state of affairs.
Their running back room looks like mine.
Oh, man. That's tough.
It's not great.
I guess Zach Evans is likely the guy for at least this week. Who knows what they do behind him. A lot of the time, McVay tries to stick with one guy most of the game anyways, so I imagine that he'll get most of the run, at least for the time being.
Yeah, we'll see with Zach Evans. He has his limitations. There's a reason that he was a 6th-round pick and could not hold on to a starting job in college despite being a much ballyhooed 5-star recruit.
He was a 5-star recruit. I heard that every time he's been discussed.
Yeah, he was a 5-star recruit. He was one of the top running backs in his recruiting class, and then he flamed out of multiple starting spots. He's always had the physical tools, and you see it in flashes, but we'll see if he can put it together this week, if he even gets enough run to even do it. You never know with McVay. We saw something similar happen to the Cardinals, where James Conner missed, and we assumed that DeMercado, after his strong game last week, was going to take over the primary role, and that's not what happened at all. He played on the passing downs, and Ingram and Damian Williams, speaking of guys signed off the couch, carried the load for the most part.
Who knows how the Rams choose to approach that game plan, but
knowing McVay, it's possible that they just don't run at all, and they just throw 70 times.
It could easily happen. David Montgomery, we talked about Craig Reynolds earlier. David Montgomery went down, out with the cartilage issue in his ribs. That sounds terrible. Campbell said he would be out a little bit, so we don't really have a time frame for that, but we should be close to seeing Gibbs back, and obviously we saw Craig Reynolds get some run this week.
Yeah, we don't know how close we are to getting Gibbs back. He hasn't practiced in any capacity in the last 2 weeks, not even a limited session. Really don't know how close he is.
Stand corrected. Well, Craig Reynolds it is then.
And Divine Ozigbo. It's just running backs in general. The attrition, it feels like it happens every year. Just run out of bodies.
One other running back, a bit of a scary injury for Damian Harris in the night game on Sunday night. Taken off on the body board there on the stretcher.
Yeah, I never like to see that. Supposedly he's okay. They're checking him out for concussion and a neck contusion.
Yeah, so good to know that he's all right, because it's always tough when you see a player down like that, and for it to be another Buffalo player, I think had a lot of people holding their breath for a minute or two.
Exactly, yeah, of all teams.
So over at the wide receiver position, not a ton of injuries this week. Deebo Samuel left the 49ers game. Shoulder injury, he's listed as day-to-day. We don't really know a whole heck of a lot at the moment. Worth keeping an eye on, though. He's been banged up for a couple weeks now after coming down hard. I think it was against the Giants.
For a couple years now.
A couple years, yeah. Yeah, ever since his number 2 overall, or number 2 wide receiver finish, was it 2 years ago, he's just been snake bitten.
Yeah, it's his play style. Man, he plays hard. He runs people over. There's not a lot of wide receivers that play like that. And this is why. They're generally not built like running backs.
I don't think there are a lot of wide receivers that can play like this.
Yeah, that's fair. They usually get moved to tight end if they play like this.
It's true. Yeah. It makes sense to me that he's on the same team as George Kittle. They just, both of them.
Ayuk's the same way. That's how Shanahan builds his offense. It's a bunch of yak monsters. Get him the ball in space and let him work.
Only other person I thought to mention here, Alec Pierce left the fourth quarter of the Colts game. Right shoulder injury for him. No real word on that yet, but just another one to keep an eye on. All right, the league median score this week was a 183.1, bit of a lower median than we've had. We only had 2 NFL teams on bye, Green Bay and Pittsburgh. Some decent fantasy implications with those 2 teams, but not exactly a massive bye week. Our leading scorer this week, our number 1 high-scoring team, blew everyone out of the water, but no one more so than his weekly opponent. We had Judd with a 262.76, beating out Rugg with a 116.01. Just a massive week comparatively for Judd, and obviously Rugg trying to secure that second overall pick at the moment, not really trying to score points.
Yep, keeping the perfect record alive.
For Judd, it was just a massive week across the board, but he had the number 1 scoring running back with Raheem Mostert and the number 1 scoring wide receiver with Amon-Ra St. Brown. I don't know it for sure, but I'm pretty sure Adam Thielen was the number 2 scoring wide receiver also on his team. That'll set your week off right. On Rugg's side of things, nice game from Wan'Dale Robinson. Good game from Curtis Samuel. Not a whole heck of a lot going on there outside of that. Judd this week with the largest margin of victory, and I'm pretty sure the largest margin between the first and second place scores that we've seen in a while.
Yeah, he was the number 1 team this week, and it wasn't particularly close. There's only one other team even over 200. We're going to get to that matchup next, and it was barely.
Let's go over to that one right now, actually. So our second highest scoring team this week was Mel Crisp, who, as you said, was the only other team to break 200. He had a 200.73, beat out Flinch, who had a 188.52. So both of these teams over the median score on the week, so they get that bonus win. No bonus loss here. But Mel takes down the honors for the number 2 highest score overall.
Yeah, Mel's team is finally coming around here the last few weeks. He even got Kyle Pitts in the end zone.
Wait, Kyle Pitts actually scored a touchdown? I didn't even know.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I know they call him a unicorn, but we weren't expecting his touchdowns to be that rare.
Oh, tough luck. Yeah, he had good weeks from his big names. Cooper Kupp back from the injury 2 weeks in a row now, looking good. AJ Brown, big game. Jamar Chase, big game. That's how Mel's team is designed to win, and it paid off this week. On Flinch's side of things, good game for Kyron Williams before the injury. Good game from Breece Hall. No injury there, thankfully. Good game from Derrick Henry. Good game from Ramondre. It's those running backs that we talked about having solid performances, keeping him up at the top, up enough to keep pace with the median score at least.
Yep, carried again by his running backs. He's got a really good, really deep running back room, and they kept him over the median this week.
The disappointment for Flinch's team was his quarterback position. Lamar had a good game, nice 18.8, but he had Tajay Spears in his super flex because Russell Wilson underperformed and Deshaun Watson was out this week. So he wasn't able to get the points to overcome Mel in the matchup, but at least the rest of his team was solid enough that he did beat that median score out.
Yeah, the interesting thing here is the Deshaun Watson injury. Yeah. There's been a lot of swirling contradictory reports about how he's not really hurt and is he hurt, and he's been cleared medically, but he's not ready to play. Now they're saying it's a deep contusion in his rotator cuff where he can't get enough on the ball to really push it downfield, so he's holding himself out despite being cleared by the team doctors. Just a strange situation all around. We don't really know what we're going to get out of Watson going forward, which is scary for the rest of the skill players on this team based on how PJ Walker and Dorian Thompson-Robinson have looked as fill-in starters.
It's not been pretty. It's a fascinating situation with Watson. Just, the rotator cuff injury that they're talking about, it's one of those where it's just time. There's nothing more to it. You just need time, and eventually it'll be healed and you'll be able to come back. But they've got no leverage to try to force him to. His entire contract fully guaranteed. They've got no leverage as a team. I don't think it would shock anyone if Stefanski ends up as a casualty of the front office this year and ends up, with a new head coach there. It's
If
bad vibes with the team, man.
If somebody's getting scapegoated, it's not going to be the guy with the $250 million guaranteed contract. He ain't going nowhere.
The one good thing for Browns fans is that Watson's been terrible too. So, other terrible quarterbacks should be okay.
As bad as he's been, it's still a significant downgrade to PJ Walker. He did manage to spring the upset this week, though.
Yeah, I was going to say, PJ Walker, who handed the
I think that's more to do with the
undefeated 49ers their first loss.
I think that's more to do with the suffocating Browns defense than anything PJ Walker himself did.
How dare you besmirch PJ Walker in such a fashion?
He's on my roster, so
your roster has some tough looks on it, my friend. All right, let's see. What else we have in this matchup? Anything stick out to you?
I noticed that after the matchup, he activated Brenton Strange off of his taxi squad.
Yeah, so he had a tough week at the tight end position where Gerald Everett and Adam Troutman were the two tight ends that made his lineup. Troutman with a 2.15, one catch for 4 yards. So I can see why he wanted some reinforcements there. Strange had the touchdown in the game.
Yeah, it was definitely his biggest snap share of the season. He played over half the snaps, got 3 targets. He had only had 3 targets the rest of the season combined. Got in the end zone. If you have a tight end that's getting any amount of targets in this league, you need them on your roster because at any point they can make your lineup.
Our third highest score of the week was Mr. Good News with a 199.78, beating out Big with a 169.13. A little bit of clumping here between the second, third, and fourth highest scoring teams of the week, all within a 2-point span. Mr. Good News had a solid day, especially in comparison to the rest of the league. Justin Herbert with a good game. Kenneth Walker continues his streak of scoring touchdowns every single week. New acquisition for him, Stephon Diggs, comes through with 10 for 100.
His standard line.
Yeah,
10 for
16
100.
Targets.
Pretty much every week. This is just what Stephon Diggs does every week.
Yeah, the man is unstoppable. Tough week on the quarterback front for Mr. Good News. Kenny Pickett on bye. Kirk Cousins with a down week. He gets his super flex filled by Austin Eckler. Nice to see Eckler back after a few weeks on the bench.
Yeah, Dallas kind of bottled him up, but the Chargers did a lot of damage to themselves with all of the penalties.
Yeah.
But at least he was back out there playing his normal snap share. The biggest story from this matchup is Big Side. He had his first real down week of the season.
Yeah, his first disappointment, really. So he was 169 is under the median, so he gets that bonus loss, goes 0-2 for the first time. His record is now 9-3. And honestly, with the down scores across the league, even though he had a bad week, he didn't lose that many points for his, the points tiebreakers.
Yeah, and it was pretty much roster-wide disappointment. His quarterback room came back to bite him this week. Ritter had a terrible real-life game, but at least he put up some fantasy points. The other guys didn't do much. Josh Dobbs and Baker Mayfield. And then the running back injuries starting to pile up a little bit for him. His top running back this week was Kareem Hunt.
Hunt actually had a decent game as well. 17 points is nothing to sneeze at.
Yeah, but it's a far cry from Devon Achane putting up 50 points there.
Exactly. That's the big difference. He just didn't have the boom weeks. This is another one. We discussed a matchup like this. I can't remember whose matchup it was. I think it might have been yours even last week, where his lowest scoring player had an 11.25. He's in double digits across the board. It's just there were no boom weeks. Everyone was fine, but I mean, you need better than fine in a best ball. Yeah,
that was my matchup last week. That's how I've been in my losses. I don't get any booms. I still have enough depth where I'm getting double-digit points everywhere.
Yep,
which is what Big got here. But without the ceiling, and this is kind of the result of your week. It's not going to be pretty.
Yeah, his highest score was Zay Flowers with a 19.1, which is a solid game. It's great. You want a 19 every week, but you didn't need the bigger booms, and they didn't come this week. But I'm sure he'll get them going forward.
Yeah, the way his team is built, it's happened every week but this one. So I'm sure there's still more to come.
All right, so that is our third highest scoring team with a 199. Our fourth highest scoring team was your team with a 198.95. beating out Criddle, who had a 127.04. Obviously, Criddle has started to look a little bit more towards the future, so I'm sure this loss doesn't come as a devastating one to him personally, but a solid week for a few players on both teams. You had the highest scoring quarterback of the week, Tua Tagovailoa, with a 24.48. CeeDee Lamb finally coming through for you with a 23.95. Waddle, same thing, 20.85. Nice to see him get a touchdown. It's been a little bit up and down for Waddle this year. Your other big scorer, Jared Goff, with a 22.92. On Criddle's side of things, his two quarterbacks, Jalen Hurts and Sam Howell, both 20 points and 19 points respectively. Outside of that, not a whole heck of a lot going on. His new acquisition, Dallas Goedert, with a nice 15-point week. You know, the story for you, big names at wide receiver finally coming through. CeeDee Lamb, Chris Olave, Jalen Waddle, Raheed Shaheed, all at least 19.5 points. First round pick traded for Raheed Shaheed continues to pay dividends. In all of your trading ability sometimes.
He's made the lineup a lot more than Jahmyr Gibbs has so far this year. So you joke, but that's the reason I threw him in that deal, because I figured I would get at least a couple of spike weeks out of him and he'd make my lineup at some point.
It's paid off. He's been in there a few times now, and obviously a 19.5 is a really nice game to have.
He only caught 2 passes, so that's all he needed.
Well, you don't forget the 2 carries he had as well, so 4 touches.
Yeah, my team this week was, I mean, similar to last week with a slightly higher ceiling. I didn't get any real huge games, but I had enough production up and down the lineup to get a decent score on a down week. And then for Criddle, it was really his running backs have carried him, and to have McCaffrey and Montgomery both go down in the same week, it really hurt his ceiling.
He's got a very strong, if not very deep, running back room, and with 2 injuries to the 2 top guys in the same week, it obviously, like you said, it just devastates a lineup if you're not deep at the position. Our next matchup is JMC with a 185.7, beating out Flea with a 180.51. Pretty tight matchup here. JMC just over the median, Flea just under the median. Tough luck for her with the score in her draw an opponent this week. But JMC gets his double win, and does it mostly on the strength of his big name pass catchers. Tyreek Hill with a 32, Travis Kelce with a 31, Jonnu Smith with a 17. You know,
I was like, you better mention Jonnu Smith with the big time pass catchers. You better do it. Good job.
Thank you. Jacoby Myers also with a good game. He really cobbled it together this week. There's some ugly scores in this lineup. Tyrod Taylor was his highest scoring quarterback with an 8. Brock Purdy in his super flex with a 6.45. He got it done, but it wasn't the prettiest of weeks that we've seen.
Yeah, this is his team, right? I mean, he's going to get carried if his superstars have week-winning performances. Then he's got it just enough to get there. He really lacks depth, so yeah, he's not getting much from the rest of his roster. If those guys don't put up huge 30, 40-point weeks, then he's going to really struggle.
It's all right. He's got Trenton Irwin now. He'll be good. On Flea's side of things, she had some big days. Travis Etienne with a 24-point game. Kendrick Bourne, 23 points. That 5th-round pick she traded, absolutely worth the price of admission there.
This is why everyone should always trade with me. I just trade away good players for nothing all the time. This is all I do all day. How do I ever win any matchups?
It's a wonderful question. TJ Hawkinson and Darren Waller are both coming through with reliable but not flashy games. Really, it's the same story for her that it was for Big. No boom games on the roster. I mean, you could say ETN and Bourne are boom games, but 24 isn't crazy. Just solid performances across the board. She only got 1 score that isn't in double digits, and that was a 9.4 from Marquise Brown. I mean, good scores, just slightly lacking in the boom weeks. Quarterback scores kind of hurt her a little bit. With no Richardson anymore, it's a little bit tougher for Gardner Minshew to put up big weeks.
Yeah, especially if Richardson is now going to be out for the season. That really hurts her ceiling. right? Because Gardner's fine. You can get by with him as your second or third quarterback, but he doesn't have that quarterback one overall in the week upside that Anthony Richardson carries.
Yeah, it's tough news on the Richardson front. He was having an exciting first year. That's it for the matchups, right?
Wait, don't we have one more?
No, I don't think we do.
Well, I haven't congratulated Georgia Mike for having the lowest score of the week yet.
Oh, that's right. Well, you could just go ahead and do that. We don't need to get into the rest of it. So our last matchup is wildly disappointing for everyone to hear about. So we're going to go real fast on this one.
It's only wildly disappointing because no one else in the league got to play either of you two.
The final matchup was my team playing against Georgia Mike. As everyone will be aware, Georgia Mike has entered into a lengthy rebuild here, and as of last week, I also entered into a rebuild. Who knows how long it'll last? Hopefully not years, but we'll see. So the final score this week, my team 114.07 to Georgia Mike's 95.30. I unfortunately cannot congratulate myself on the highest margin of victory this week. That went to Judd, but I'll be quiet for a minute now.
You can congratulate yourself on probably having the lowest score in a victory this year. I can't imagine we'll get too many more wins with 114 points.
I did my best to ruin his perfect 0-12 record.
You almost got him.
Yeah. Damn you, Dak Prescott. So congratulations to me on the victory, and
congratulations to Georgia Mike on his continued pursuit of the 101.
Yeah, we don't really need to cover anything here. There's a couple good games on his lineup that brought him close to getting a win by accident. Drake London with a big game.
That's his highest score of the year, right?
Michael Pittman with a big game. I believe it is. I don't honestly know, and frankly, I'm not going to vet that. So we'll just accept it as true.
I'm gonna assume this is all because of Malik Willis. He's got two starting quarterbacks now.
Yeah, he did have two quarterbacks in there starting. I mean, he got rid of Tyrod Taylor, but you can only do so much. You know, dread it, run from it. Malik Willis arrives all the same.
I have a feeling that he probably arrives an hour late to everything, based on how he looks in the pocket.
Oh yeah, it's tough. All right, so that about does it for the matchups. Congratulations to those who got the win and the bonus win. Better luck next time to everyone who lost and got that bonus loss. Let's move over to America's favorite segment, updating the Dynasty Daddy make the playoffs odds. All right, we've seen some more solidification at the top here. JMC still leads the way, 98% chance to make the playoffs. He stands a good ways ahead of the next two, though. Judd at 89%, Flinch at 85%, and Mr. Good News at 81%. Those were our four in the tier last week, and I guess you could still say that they're the same tier, but Mel and Big are at 77 and 75%. So it really appears as though we've had a good amount of solidification in our top six.
The top of the middle tier and the bottom of the top tier have kind of melded into one long playoff tier now. The top six teams are all over 75%.
Yep.
And then really the middle tier now is just me and Flea kind of just hanging around on the outside looking in.
Yeah, both of you right around that 50%. You're at 52%, she's at 41%, but both still well within things. The problem for you two is that you've got that 6-6 record right now, and you're only a game behind Mr. Good News and Mel in terms of record, so you're not that far outside of things. But it could be that they're calculating the ease of schedule for the rest of the season as well. I haven't gone that in depth on looking ahead, to be honest with you.
Yeah, they do project the matchups week to week for the rest of the season. So that's where they get the projected record from, which is leading to the odds. Right now, our projected records are lower end of season than everyone else's. A lot of these teams have a pretty healthy head start, 3 or 4 games ahead of us. So it'll take some work for us to get back into the playoff picture. But it looks like it's going to be a dogfight to the end for at least the last 2 spots or so.
Yeah. As you said, it should come down to it, because outside of JMC, who's projected at 19-9, everyone else is projected everyone else, I should say, that is currently competing. Judd at number 2 down to Flea is projected either 17-11, 16-12, or 15-13. There's not a big difference in those projected records, and
yeah, it's only 2 games for 7 teams,
and
2 games is only 1 week for us.
Here's the thing: Georgia Mike and Benign Rug in this projection are both shown with 3 wins. They're not getting 3 wins. I don't know whether those 3 projected are against the median or against players. I mean, like, they're like
Georgia Mike almost got a win this week.
Yeah, but here's the thing: the 2 of them play each other at some point, and one of them will get a win.
Yep.
Outside of that,
well, if you and Criddle continue to strip down rosters,
that's true.
What I didn't really see in this week's matchups that I kind of expected to start seeing going forward was more point consolidation in the top teams. I expected to start seeing higher scores with the top teams.
Yeah.
Considering that everyone's buying and the bottom 4 teams are really stripping down the rosters, and all of those players are moving on to the top 8 teams rosters. I expected to see higher scores this week. It didn't really happen. Scoring was down across the league. But I expect going forward, we're going to start seeing higher scores from the top teams as the divide grows between the haves and the have-nots.
Yeah, you've seen all those trades where the contending teams are pushing more chips in from the future into this year and buying those productive players. You would expect those scores to go up. I think it was partially just down scoring across the NFL this week, and I'm pretty sure this week coming up we've got 6 teams going on bye in the NFL, so it's not likely that we see big scores this week either.
Yeah, but one thing that does is the teams that are acquiring multiple extra starters are going to be able to weather the bye weeks a lot easier than the teams that are not.
Yeah, so we'll see that affect our league median score and everything as well. It'll be easier for some teams to pick up that bonus win. Well, that wraps up our week 6 recap. Hope everyone enjoyed that. We've got another manager interview to get to this week. We were lucky enough to have a chat with JMC. Hopefully everyone enjoys that. I know we did. And we'll catch everybody next week.
What's up, fellas?
Hey, the champ is here.
the defending champ for now.
Right.
All good things must come to an end, right?
Hey, it's not over yet.
It's not over yet, and you're still in the pole position on playoff seeding.
Right.
Man, that team is a house of cards, boys. It's falling apart one card at a time.
Hey man, you didn't see the report today? Rodgers is going to be back for week 12.
Oh yeah.
Did that really
sure
come out?
Is.
That's what he says.
Oh God.
Oh my gosh.
I don't.
Yeah.
I'll believe it when I see it, but
Yeah, can I take the over on that? I don't know if there's a live line for that, but I would love to get the over on that number.
Yeah, I don't think too many people are buying that one at 40 years old.
He's got that magic healing medicine out in the woods.
Yeah, I mean, this guy's like injecting HGH and PRP directly into his Achilles.
Just leave the Achilles in total darkness for 6 months.
Listen to the sound of whales spending time together or whatever he was listening to.
There you go.
He makes his own soap, guys. It'll work out okay.
I just went. What would week 12 be? That would be 3-month recovery. Yeah, I just went through a tendon tear, and it was not my Achilles. And I'm gonna just go out on a limb and say he will not be ready for football at the highest level in 3 months.
Yeah, he won't be walking in 3 months.
Yeah, no, dude's lost his mind.
Yeah, well, I mean, the evidence for that has been mounting for years.
Yeah, fair.
I will say this, though, and to comment on the Jets just briefly, Zach Wilson, while still terrible, has not been the most terrible quarterback in football this year. I have watched worse.
There's plenty of competition for that title this year.
There's always plenty of competition for that title, unfortunately.
You got Ryan Tannehill right in your backyard, so.
Oh man. Yeah, that hurts.
But you're a Titans fan, right?
Yeah.
I
Hey,
am a Titans fan.
and the bad news is Malik Willis is somehow much, much worse.
Malik Willis is that guy is a disaster. I'm not going to say he's not talented, but he is not good in our offense.
His pocket
Nobody is.
His pocket presence is just zero. I mean,
Yeah.
he got sacked on like a third of his snaps. How is that even possible?
Oh, I mean, it's abysmal. I was talking to another guy. I'm a diehard Titans fan, but I'm also pragmatic. And before this year started, I was like, we need to tear it down. Like the defense is good, but the offense has zero of the components that I think it takes to be competitive on offense in the NFL. I think that there are four core components. You need a good line. You need to be good to above average to good in two of these four things: line play, play calling, skill position, and quarterback, right? If you've got two of the four, you're typically going to be at least competent offensively in neutral matchups. And we have zero of the four. So that's 11 guys that have to be replaced on offense. And yeah, it just felt like it might be time to shut it down. I don't know, but got to run it back, I guess.
Well, yeah, that's Vrabel. He holds a lot of power there, and there's no way he's losing on purpose.
Yeah.
No. But I think he's gonna get it shoved down his throat this year. I really hope he walks away at this point. There's a few OCs out there that I like. Love Ben Johnson. I like Shane Waldron. Yeah, he's going to get a job. I think Waldron gets a job. Two reclamation projects in a row that he's made look average to better in Geno and Baker. And I really like the guy in Houston. I mean, CJ Stroud's playing out of his mind, but the OC in Houston's definitely
Bobby
allowing his skill
Slowick,
set
right?
Yeah. He's allowing his skill set to flourish. So I think those three guys will be candidates for this next hiring cycle for sure.
That'd be a quick turnaround for Slowick, but yeah.
It
pretty
happens.
fast.
In the NFL,
True.
these rising coaches, it's better to be a year early and kind of let them grow into the position rather than wait and let someone else kind of snake them away, right?
Absolutely.
Just go through you live with the growing pains for the first year until they kind of figure it out.
And we're going to be bad on offense, regardless. We're going to be either second year Will Levis, which jury's out, or a rookie. So I would say that it would be if you think he's the right guy, you just go ahead and make the move, would be my opinion. But I thought we should make the move this year. So maybe I watched too much NBA. I don't know. Those guys are always ready to tear it down.
So NBA, are you a Grizzlies fan or are you another team?
I'm a Grizzlies fan, but I've been a LeBron fan for so long that I have to root for whatever team LeBron is on until he retires. And then once he retires, my fandom will no longer be conflicted, and I will be a Grizzlies fan only. It's really my dad's fault. He was such a huge Kobe fan, and we just went back and forth over the years. Like, he forced me into a position of defending LeBron so often that I became a fan of his game, and now I just root for the guy.
That's fair.
Yeah, he's one of those guys that kind of supersedes your regional fandom.
He has to. I mean,
it's essentially like Jordan was in the 90s, right? People were Michael Jordan fans, so they became Bulls fans from all over the world.
Yeah.
Just because of the gravitational pull of Michael Jordan.
You'll probably never see another guy like LeBron in our generation, right? Like, I feel like you get like one of these guys every 20, 30 years, and I think he was the one for this generation. I don't think we'll see it again for a long time.
Yeah, he's really one of one, right? He's a force of nature, and he has been since he was a teenager. So
18-year-old kid. I mean, this guy's been amazing.
ESPN would televise his high school games. We used to watch him in college. We used to watch his high school games.
Yeah, not only did they show them, we watched them, which is an even bigger, even bigger commentary.
That is the only cover Sports Illustrated at 18.
That's the only high school basketball game I've ever watched, and I played high school basketball.
I didn't even watch from the sidelines.
You say it's one of those he's got fans everywhere and everything. The Chargers game on right now, there are more Dallas fans in Los Angeles than there are Chargers fans, just because they were the team for so long.
Yeah, that's. But I mean, that's fair. Right? That's fair for any visiting team in
LA.
Los Angeles.
True.
for the Chargers. It doesn't matter
so
who
weird.
the other team is.
So weird too, because they've got a guy in Herbert that's like, even if you don't think he's at that upper tier of like transcendent quarterback talent, like he's very close to it, and they don't seem to really care. Like if that guy was in Tennessee, he would be immortalized. We'd be talking about building him a statue. The quarterback play has been so bad here. He hasn't even won anything, and we'd be ready to build him a statue. And
Yeah.
it just baffles me that they don't show that guy more support.
The Chargers do a piss job of marketing just in general.
Yeah,
So that's
and
not
that guy
surprising.
especially.
It's always been like that.
To me, he's not really that far off from Mahomes and Allen, and I think those are the two best quarterbacks in football.
No, he's got all the talent that they do.
He'd be in the next grouping for me, like him and healthy Burrow. I think there's a real discussion between the two of those guys.
That sounds about right to me. The AFC is just loaded at quarterback.
Every good quarterback is in the AFC, and we're rolling out Ryan Tannehill and a skeleton at offensive line. It's like, come on, guys! Like, do y'all not see this?
I'm a Giants fan. We rolled out Justin Pugh this weekend, as everyone saw, straight off the couch. So
Off the couch.
things aren't great. Things aren't great in New York either.
Are you in New York, or is that just where you grew up thing?
It's a where I grew up thing. I am a Giants fan because my father was a Giants fan, because my grandfather was a Giants fan.
Good
we
reason.
are technically in New England Patriots territory, but when my family became fans of the NFL in general, the Patriots did not exist because it was the 30s.
Yeah.
And the Giants were the local team.
Y'all are in a better situation than us, though, because I think y'all have the right guy calling your plays. In Dayball, I think he's one of the better schemers in the league. So it's been weird. I really thought y'all were going to take a step forward now that we can segue into the league a little bit. I really think that y'all would maintain, or at least or actually take a step forward offensively, bringing in Waller, bringing in Hyatt, getting Wandale back. I thought that y'all would be better on offense, and to see how bad it's been so far has really surprised me. So I guess it's the offensive line. You see the pressure stats. I don't get to watch all the games, but you obviously see the pressure stats, and they've been absurd for Danny. I don't think Danny is as bad as he's looked this year. That might be a minority opinion, but I don't think he's as bad as he's looked this year.
I was going to say, so that must be why you traded for him this offseason then.
Yeah, that would explain it, right?
Yeah.
I felt like a weapons upgrade, no true downgrade at offensive line at all, and still finished as the QB9. I felt like he had room to grow and at least the ability to stay with where he was at. So late first and second round pick felt like it was for a young guy. I felt like it attached to a great play caller. Felt like it was a move that made sense. Obviously, it has not panned out this year to this point, but there's still a lot of season left. It's been odd how teams that even with average to maybe just slightly below average offensive lines have just been getting decimated in terms of pressure. Like, look at the Commanders. Their offensive line is not, personnel wise, you would not think is as bad as what Tennessee has, but Sam Howell's on pace to break the sack record.
Yeah, he's getting killed out there.
Yeah, he's getting killed, and you got the Giants, similar thing. And I think a lot of it has to do with the way the defenses are playing now. There's so many teams that have adopted this too high shell coverage, and I played DB in high school, so when we were in a too high shell, our terminology on in breakers when we were in a too high shell was to cut the route. So that means the safeties are staying at depth like 12 to 15 yards, and anything over the middle, they're jumping it, right? So it's like they take away the first read, they cut the second read, and then pressure's kind of there because you don't have an outstanding offensive line, and then you're in trouble, right? And I don't know if that's what's driving it or not. I don't have the football knowledge to know, but it really, really seems like that's caused a lot of the decrease in scoring and the increase in like just outlier pressure stats is what I've noticed.
Yeah, a lot of that is talent and development. It's a lot easier to bring in talented pass rushers than it is to develop offensive linemen. This is why for the longest time I've been saying the NFL needs something similar to like the G League where you can develop quarterbacks and offensive linemen, because those are the toughest positions to develop. You need reps. On the offensive line, the backups don't play. It's not like you're rotating guys in like you do at running back and receiver, and same with the backup quarterbacks. They don't play at all until there's injuries and they're forced in. I know they used to have NFL Europe, which was kind of a good developmental league back in the 90s, but they've really gone away from it. It might have lasted longer than that, but that's the last time I paid attention to it.
That's fair. Anyway,
definitely seems like that type of development, especially on the O-line, is the low-hanging fruit. Football has lagged behind other prominent American sports to me, or the prominent sports in America, in their like willingness to accept new methodologies and analytics, because there's still a culture around football that I do think is probably important to some degree because of how violent the sport is. You do need to breed a culture of toughness and willingness to compete, but you also have to be cognizant of the need to move forward in terms of how you coach players, right? Because I'm sure a lot of I don't know how to put a number on it, but there are probably coaching staffs within the NFL right now that are not coaching their position groups any differently than they were coached 25 years ago. That's an issue.
Well, yeah, because you can see these guys, a lot of them are lifers. They've been coaching 30 years. They're not going to change what's worked all this time. And then, they're the sons of coaches who were coaching for 50 years. So it's like the same philosophies are just being passed down from generation to generation.
Sure. Yeah, and it can't be that way.
Yeah, and the lack of quarterback talent and offensive line talent is what kills these would-be competitor leagues, XFL, and what was the one that briefly lived before that? I can't even think of the name. There's been a few of them, developmental leagues, that just they don't pan out because the product is so bad because of the lack of quarterback and offensive line skill. It's the same reason you see the proliferation of the spread in college, or you see the option in college, because they can take guys that are not as talented and put them in these systems where it's basically streamlines everything for them.
When you think about it, like if we were to go through a thought exercise of how many quarterbacks in the NFL would you actually consider to be good quarterbacks? Like I could see them winning 2 playoff games and leading their teams. That list is not very long. I don't think there's 16 of them. I would take,
if you're talking
it's
about,
gotta be under 12.
Yeah, if you're talking about guys that actually make the team around them better, that can thrive.
The elevators.
Without
the tractors, not the trailers.
Yeah, exactly. The tractors, not the trailers. How many are actually tractors? How many guys can you give shit receiving core and suspect offensive line and no running game and still will their team to even a 500 record? There's not many. You can probably count them on one hand.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would say so. And even those guys are going to struggle without the other components, but you can really feel it. You can really feel it in the playoffs. The teams that have a lot of confidence in their quarterback play, it generally bears out. It's been a pretty good strategy over the last 5 years, especially to just like bet the team with the better quarterback, especially in the playoffs. They usually win for whatever reason. It could be physical talent. It could be just intelligence, like Brady won for so long, not just because he was a great quarterback, because he's obviously great, but he was just so much smarter than the other guys. I mean, it just down to the smallest, most minute details. If they had 45 seconds and no timeouts, like Brady was not throwing the ball over the middle of the field. You could guarantee it. Like every completion was to somebody going out of bounds, stopping the clock. And it's like, man, we've seen this dude do this so many times. How many more times can he really do it?
You mean he wasn't calling audibles with 3 seconds left in the half to go run play? Speaking of the Giants.
I was watching that game and I was like, he did not. Most alerts, obviously, I mean, you guys watch a lot of football, but most alerts, quarterback gets to the line, checks the numbers, and he touches his helmet. Most alerts are checking from a pass to a run. And when he did that, I was like, there's no way that this dude, with the clock running, just checked to a run.
I assumed that they had 2 plays called and he was just checking to the second pass play. Like that's not an unusual thing either. You call 2 plays and you get up to line and if it doesn't work, well, we'll call the fade to the outside and, we'll try the one-on-one shot and then we'll get back into the huddle and try something else. Like, he didn't get a good look. Fine. And then they ran the ball and I almost died.
Dude, I as a fan, I don't know how I can't imagine what was going through your head. I really thought he was just going to check to like, all right, he's just showing alert. He's going to run like a hard play action rollout where he's got like not an RPO in the new terminology sense, but like, all right, he can run this or he can throw it to a couple of different guys. Or throw it away, which stops the clock.
Exactly.
I really thought that they would just cut it to half the field and that would be it.
If you've decided to use 4 seconds of clock to roll the quarterback out, and then if he sees like wide open daylight in front of him, he can walk in or he can throw it, to the back. That's I don't love it, but it's fine. You got 12 seconds or whatever it is, 13 seconds. You got enough time to do that once or twice. But
sure,
checking to a run, just inexcusable. My
inexcusable.
reaction, I believe, was a text. I don't remember who I sent it to, but I believe the exact quote was "Fire Kafka into the sun."
That was to
right.
me.
Yeah. So,
what's your thoughts on the season so far? I mean, what are you seeing? Is it just the O-line issue, and maybe when those guys get settled in, get some cohesiveness, that it gets better, or what do you think?
No, I don't think that they made a good selection with Neal. I didn't like it at the time. I complained to my co-host here at the time, but then again, I complain about every offensive lineman that they take.
And I just tell them to keep drafting offensive line every time. You can never have too many. Just keep drafting them until you get it right.
The problem isn't drafting the offensive lineman. It's which offensive lineman they're drafting.
Yeah, that's fair. You didn't like Thomas either, and I told you
I did not like
in that
Thomas.
class.
No, I wanted
Wirfs.
Yeah, I told you I wanted Wirfs.
Wirfs started out real hot, but Thomas has come around.
No, I'm fine with Thomas. You got to pay Thomas when the time comes. I'm fine with it. He's clearly one of the best tackles in the league. I'm fine with that. No, what I think happened this year was they made the playoffs last year on the strength of a very easy schedule, and they had a little bit of extra luck and just the upgrade from an incompetent coach to a competent coach. We've all seen that be a bigger upgrade than people think it is. Then they got to the playoffs and beat another fraudulent team in the Vikings, and the organization didn't want to take a step back and misjudged how close they were to actually being true competitors.
Yeah,
and they said
they accelerated their own timeline.
Exactly. They said, "Oh, we made the playoffs. Oh, we won a playoff game. We've got to keep this, success rolling. We've got to add to this. Let's patch a couple of the small problems and holes, which weren't in fact small problems and holes, but were massive problems and holes." And they basically went and said, "We'll just plaster over this and we'll have other stuff that'll work and we'll have another great year and everything will work out well." And then it just clearly has not gone that way. They just misjudged where they were as an organization, and now they've set themselves back multiple years. And in the end, it's probably going to end up costing the front office and the coach their job, which I would hope that it doesn't, because I actually think that the guys are competent, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I don't think
you don't think there's any chance they turn it around as the season goes along?
Not this year, no.
No. Okay.
No, I think they'll be better than they've looked. Like they're 1-5 right now. I don't think they're going to finish as a 3-win team, but I don't think you win more than 5.
Where do you put Daniel Jones on that spectrum of, as a fan, on that spectrum of quarterbacks? Like, is he better than Brock Purdy? Is he better than Russell Wilson? Is he closer to Zach Wilson or closer to Brock Purdy for you? Because I think that Daniel Jones is not a tractor to me, but I think that given a setup that's conducive to good quarterback play, he can flourish and is more physically gifted than a Purdy, for example.
Yeah, we saw it last year.
Yeah.
So I mean, we've already answered that question. If you swapped him and Purdy, it would be a very different story, right? It's similar to your quarterback, similar to Tannehill in Tennessee. We've seen it. If they can keep him upright and they have weapons around him, he can produce. I mean, they ran that play action offense to perfection. He was very efficient in that. And now that he's crumbling and he's lost some of his mobility with the injuries over the last couple of years, and the offensive line has just been decimated. It's not as pretty when your top wide receiver options are Westbrook Akini and Chris Moore. I mean, it's
and
tough to
nobody.
produce.
I was going to throw that in there, and nobody on your team can get open.
Yeah, no one can win one-on-one matchups. I mean, yes, Hopkins is still there, but Hopkins was never a guy that won, with big separation. And man, he's just kind of, you throw him the ball and he comes away with it. But this is not a guy that's running free.
No, and that's hard to do when the entire defense knows that that's the game plan, right? You put him in the slot, and they've got a linebacker ready to break on in-breaking stuff. And they've got a corner sitting on out breaking stuff, and he's not double covered in the sense that they're lining up two people on him, but there's multiple people with responsibility of addressing Hopkins getting out into a route, which takes us to the John Robinson debacle of trading a top 5-6 receiver for no reason.
Because they didn't
Doesn't
want to pay
make
him.
sense to me.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
That's
John
the whole.
Robinson,
It was the money.
That's the whole
John
problem
Robinson
with that.
was the only guy that didn't want to pay that dude.
Well,
Vrabel was
because
furious.
he didn't understand this is the way you build teams now. You pay the wide receivers because those are the guys that move your offense now. This is not 10 years ago. Receivers
15.
get paid. Yeah. I mean, this is not how you build a team anymore, the way that they're built.
No,
they're good
it's
enough.
not
They're good
even
enough
close.
they're good enough to stay close in most games, and they win more often than they lose the last few years because they've been able to keep everything close. And the defense was good enough, and the offense was good enough to score enough points to squeak out wins. But you can't survive long term like that, not anymore. That's not how you build teams.
Well,
No,
I also don't know
need
that
2 AJ Browns now, not one.
Exactly.
I don't know that Robinson is entirely to blame on that one. I think that we obviously saw, Vrabel won the power struggle there. I think some elements wanted to actually tear it down and rebuild. And you can pay a receiver through a rebuild, but also if you can get the draft capital for him, it might be better to accelerate your rebuild in another way. I think he planned to do more of a reset sooner on that entire roster than Vrabel was comfortable with. And obviously we saw how that went.
No, I think that there was definitely opposing viewpoints as to how to approach the upcoming year and the upcoming few years. I think you can, given his age and his obvious talent, he's the only thing working really on that Eagles team against average competition. I think that's pretty fair to say. Like, the Jets are down their top 4 corners, and the only thing working is AJ Brown just dominating people. And that's just, the guy is amazing. He really truly is. You can pay that guy, and it was simple.
You should pay that guy.
Yeah, it was simple. Like, the response was simple. He had the same agent as DK Metcalf and Deebo Samuel, and John Lynch's response to the agent and to Deebo was, "We'll see you in September." And that's all John had to tell AJ, and give him a contract that was in line with his value, and he would have signed it, and he would still be here, and we would be, at least we would have one player on our offense that we could count on rooting for the next 2 or 3 years because he's worth keeping. And at this point, I don't think that person exists. Traylon will top out, in my opinion, as a wide receiver too if he hits his ceiling. I don't think he'll ever touch the era that AJ Brown lives in as one of the 5 or 6 best receivers in football.
Yeah, no.
Certainly doesn't seem like he'll be up there.
No one loves Treylon Burks more than me, and yeah, that ceiling never existed for him.
No. He's not that kind of route runner. He's not good player, useful player, I think, somewhere in there, but it's not AJ Brown. The Titans ended up with the worst wide receiver that got drafted in that first round, I think. Great first round of receivers, but I think he was probably the worst one. And I like Traylon, but he's no Garrett Wilson. He's no Drake London. Yeah, he's no Chris Olave for sure.
So far, he's outproduced Jameson Williams.
That was what I was going to say. The jury's still out on JMO at the moment.
But that could
I don't
change
know if you guys
over the second half of this year.
I don't know if you guys live on Twitter the way that I do, but he ran a comeback against the Buccaneers last week that you want to talk about separation. Goff threw him a horrible ball, so he didn't catch it. But the corner, the corner was 9 yards off of him after this comeback. I'll send it to you guys. But I mean,
Yep.
the corner would have had to. The corner might have missed him if he were trying to throw a ball to him. He was so far away from him. He almost left the screen. It was bad.
I saw the play. He was so open that Goff severely underthrew him. He had time to come all the way back for it. He definitely adds a different element than what they've had in that offense. So
he has the capability to lift the lid on those shell coverages. He's that kind of fast. I think. He reminded me of Deshaun Jackson at Alabama, the way that he tracked the ball. That was always the thing that was so special about Deshaun that nobody talked about is, like, yes, he was fast, and yes, he was very game fast, but he tracked the ball so well in the air, which is not easy to do, especially as far downfield as those guys get passes thrown to them.
Yeah, because there's been plenty of fast receivers that don't amount to anything in the NFL. We've seen them.
Yeah, John Ross.
There's plenty of guys.
They were all drafted by Oakland.
We've seen not all of them, but yeah, a lot of them.
A lot of them, yeah.
That's a big part of. Yeah. I mean, that's a big part of that downfield receiver role. You got to be able to track the ball,
and it's not
otherwise
easy.
You're just running wind sprints.
Yeah, and it's not easy. But those guys, Jameson, he's fun. I'm looking forward to seeing how he impacts this Lions offense. Again, I spend probably too much time on fantasy football Twitter, but have you guys? I can't, like, Arthur Smith just puts me on tilt every time because I love Kyle Pitts and I love Drake London, and I'm like, what does this guy not understand about how good Kyle Pitts is? But I will say this: for as much as I despise Arthur Smith sometimes, and I get actively happy when they lose games because it's just like, good, run the ball again, Arthur. It's really working out for you, buddy.
One step closer to getting him out of there.
Yeah, that's right. And I think Ben Johnson is great. I will say this: Arthur Smith's usage and creativity with Bijan Robinson far outstrips the way that the Lions have utilized Jahmyr Gibbs. I don't think that they have adjusted their playbook nearly enough to, like, accentuate his skill set as a player. And I'm hoping that changes as the year goes on. But they don't. I mean, you see Arthur Smith. Yeah, I mean, you see Arthur Smith throwing Bijan screens. You see him getting him in motion. You see him lining him up at receiver, getting him the ball, and you just do not see that with Jahmyr very often.
And they talked about it all offseason, how they were going to use him even down the field.
Yes.
Because they were really lacking that kind of, field stretcher. And there's been none of that so far this year.
None of it. I mean, and I've watched it pretty closely, and they have not done it.
Maybe we'll see a little bit more of that now that you're going to have Les Montgomery on the field. They're going to have to use him, once Gibbs is back himself, they're going to have to use him more. Maybe you'll see some more creativity.
Last time Montgomery missed, they basically just used Gibbs in the Montgomery role.
Like Montgomery.
Slammed him up the middle 20 times.
Yeah. Makes no sense. That's not what he's good at. I think he's got the ability to be a game changer, but he's got to be utilized in I don't want to call it a unique way. It's kind of like some of the way that Shanahan utilizes Debo, like pretty similar in my mind.
Well, you see him the few times that he actually gets in space, he looks electric. In that first game of the year against the Chiefs, I said this is a perfect role for him. They were using him. He was getting to the edge. He was breaking tackles. He looked like he was running in a different gear than Montgomery. It was a good change of pace the way they had that rotation, and really haven't seen it that much since then.
No, unfortunately not.
Yeah, it's gotten worse. It's taken a downgrade.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of the Lions, how many guys in Dynasty are y'all willing to take over at receiver specifically? Are y'all willing to take over Amon-Ra St. Brown? Because he has climbed the list.
It gets smaller by the week, really.
Yes. What is he, top 5 now? Top 6?
He's probably wide receiver 3 right now.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I mean, just thinking about age in it too. You want Jefferson and Chase.
Chase. Yeah.
There's no other obvious name. Like you put AJ Brown above him, that's fine. You put CeeDee Lamb above him, that's fine. But like if you didn't want to, I'm not gonna kill you for it.
Yeah, there's probably 8 to 10 guys that are in that next kind of tier, and he's definitely at the top of it.
It's been fun watching Garrett Wilson this year. I'm in a pretty high stakes for me redraft league, and we were picking out of the 105. I took Tyreek at the 105 and 10 man, and we got
good start.
Garrett. Yeah, great start. We were very excited to get that start. Got Garrett Wilson at the 205, and we were really excited about that. And then obviously Rodgers goes down 4 plays into the season. We're like, uh-oh, we're in trouble. But Garrett has not hit the kind of ceiling that I think he would have hit with Rodgers, but he has elevated Zach Wilson in a lot of ways, I think. I mean, there's been some throws that normal guys are not coming down with that Garrett Wilson's coming down with right now in contested situations, which has kind of surprised me.
Yep.
He's been fun.
He showed off the full skill set this year, forced into it by Zach Wilson.
Yeah.
But
the touchdown in the Buffalo game is one everyone's going to remember. But he's done stuff like that a couple of times.
Yeah,
he caught one this week against Philadelphia that was just fantastic. I mean, straight 9 route, goes up over the top of the guy, brings it in 2 feet down. I was like, golly, man, Rodgers, this dude would have been a top 5 receiver if Rodgers didn't get hurt.
Well, don't worry, he's going to be back by week 12. So
week 12, yeah, lock it up.
All right,
lock it up.
So let me stop you for a sec. You mentioned you were in a high stakes redraft. How many leagues do you play in total across either redraft, dynasty, everything?
12. 8 redraft. Total? 12 total. 8 redraft, 4 dynasty. I tend to spend more time focused on the redraft leagues than I do the dynasty leagues in the regular season. And that's a flaw in my dynasty game, and it's why I don't get deeper into dynasty. So, 12 right now.
I think depending on the size of the dynasty, that's kind of natural. There's only so many real moves you can make in dynasty. That's more of an off-season kind of maintenance for the most part, depending on where you're at team-wise, right? Now, if you're in a cellar and you're trying to rebuild, then you're going to be more aggressive during the season in dynasty. But if you've got a good team and you don't have, especially in this league, you've got a good roster, you don't have a ton of picks to be moving around to really buy guys anyway. So there's not a ton to do. It's not like we have anything on waivers. Trust me, we cover waivers every week in this league, and there ain't nothing out there.
There's very limited options with waivers, and this league, it frustrates me because of just I had to kind of push the chips in to try to win. But that initial push the chip in move that I made was for Mixon, Rodgers, and Kelsey, which obviously Kelsey, I don't win the league without Kelsey, but Rodgers he was pretty bad last year, gets hurt this year. Mixon, I've never been a fan of since his second year in the league. I've never really been a fan of Mixon. And it kind of left the cupboards bare, and that's not typically the way that I operate in dynasty leagues or in redraft leagues. I've been a 0 RB guy for like 4 or 5 years. Before 0 RB was cool, I was doing 0 RB because I'm a fanatic and I pay more attention to it than everybody else. So it's easier for me to be picking up, Craig Reynolds while everybody's sleeping than it is for me to take Derrick Henry at the 102. I was taking Tyreek at 102 4 or 5 years ago and building 0 RB teams. But this team has such a lack of resources. It's frustrating to me because I don't have the flexibility I'm used to having. I'm usually 6 or 7 receivers deep with the ability to buy running backs as the season goes along and roles clarify and health clarifies and you get closer to the playoffs. It's easier to buy guys you know who the target should be, and there's just not very many options with that in this league right now. I don't have the flexibility in this league that I have in other leagues, so that's been frustrating for me. Sold Cooper Kupp last year to buy Debo to try to win, and then Debo got hurt, and now Kupp's back. Kind of overreacted to the Stafford injury concerns, and now Kupp is back to being probably the wide receiver 1 the rest of the way. Just with the target volume is insane. Couple of missed moves, couple of moves I really like. Obviously, I sold Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Ezekiel Elliott as soon as I took over this team. Never lived to regret that, but just not the flexibility that I'm used to having. So that's been frustrating.
The good news is you did win at least. You know, there's a lot of teams
Sure.
that do all in moves like this and then they don't win, and then you're really left with regret.
Yeah.
So at least
you
it
came in
worked out
hot.
in the end.
You came in, made a bunch of moves, got the championship in your first year in the league. That's something to be impressed with.
Kind of bought the right piece in Kelsey and was lucky enough to get into position to get some guys that had some value in London and Burks and moved those guys, which really hurt me. Again, not my typical mode of operation. I'm usually holding those guys like they're actual gold, especially London. But it got me Kelsey. It was kind of worth it because he's a force multiplier in this league. He's pretty much 2 tight ends unto himself in this league.
Yeah, and at some point that bill's going to come due, but at least you got the championship
brother,
out of it.
It's due. Like it's due. The injuries are mounting up, but there were some usable pieces on this team that I've been able to keep. Like Jacoby Myers, he's been fantastic in Las Vegas with Jimmy G. He was always a player I liked, but he's kind of been unleashed in Vegas with Jimmy G. So that's been fun to watch. He's siphoned off a lot more from Devontae Adams than I suspected would happen.
I think this last week against the Patriots, they wanted to specifically feature Myers just because that seems like the sort of petty stuff that those New England guys do.
Absolutely.
How did you end up getting pulled into this particular league?
Got an invite from Bruno Davis, who then left the league the year after I joined it. Makes a lot of sense. But yeah, he invited me in, and I only had one dynasty league at the time, and I was looking to pick one up. So I grabbed this one, and it's been fun having you guys to talk to. I know me and Ryan talk quite a bit on the messaging format, but it's been this team is be the interesting phase. I think seeing how to walk the line, if Purdy's a real thing, or do they go after Cousins? Does Daniel Jones come back and go back to where he was last year? It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, you went from being one of the oldest teams at quarterback with riding Rodgers and Brady to the title to having a future now. So you don't actually have to fully tear down and rebuild like it seemed like you might have to after the title, but you have options now. It's good to see.
Yeah, a couple options. What are their ceilings is the issue, right? And if Purdy flames out in spectacular fashion and Cousins is available, I would not be surprised at all to see the Niners go make that move. I view Kirk Cousins as much closer to the Dak Prescott tier than other people do, though. So that could be me and my own thought process.
I don't think you're that far off. I mean, there's a reason I had both Dak and Cousins on the roster there for a while. I think both are talented players. I can understand that comparison.
I view, and when I say their tier, I just mean their value as dynasty-esque.
Oh yeah.
Dak's much more valuable in a dynasty setting than Kirk. But given their play on Sundays, I could definitely make the argument that Kirk is a lateral move to Dak, if not maybe even a slight upgrade at times, given Dak's kind of interception propensity over the last couple of years.
Kirk Cousins has been the cheapest quarterback one you could buy in Dynasty the last several years.
Yeah, and Justin
it's
Jefferson.
A good thing we don't have any
very good
Dallas Cowboys fans in here. I don't do.
Okay, I have a hard time keeping up. There's so much. This league is the only league that has a lively chat or message board, and I have a hard time figuring out who's an Eagles fan and who's a Cowboys fan and all that. There's a couple of Eagles fans, right?
Yeah, we have 2 vocal Eagles fans. They'll tell you what they think about Dak.
Unfortunately,
I've heard it in the DMs from Criddle a few times already.
Oh man, I wonder how they feel about the fact that the Kingmaker, the straw that stirred the drink, is no longer there, and it's showing in Shane Steichen. I feel like this is the most under talked about point about good teams in football, is that prior to
the brain drain.
Prior to Shane Steichen taking over play calling duties in Sirianni's first year, he was on the hot seat because they looked so bad on offense. I mean, the articles are out there. You can go back and find them. They looked horrible on offense. They very pass happy, super high pass rate. They go over to Steichen. He cuts the pass rate way down, accentuates what Jalen was good at as a passer, ran him a lot more in the design fashion, leaned on the O-line, and they went on that run of winning games. And then, they trade for A.J. Brown. They've got, arguably the best wide receiver duo in the league. If you wanted to make that argument, it's very close between them and the Dolphins to me in terms of just overall ability. And then they go to the Super Bowl. Offense looks unstoppable. Offense was unstoppable in the Super Bowl with the exception of a fumble. Steichen leaves, and now, they're 5-1. But I think, to be fair, the offense has not been as consistent or as prolific this year as it was last year. And that's prior to the Jets debacle, where any quarterback can have a bad game. But their red zone efficiency has taken a pretty big step back in comparison to last year.
I think that obviously you've seen a step back, but also they had some numbers last year that were just outliers in terms of efficiency. Every year you see outliers in terms of efficiency, and you're going to see natural regression on a lot of those teams. And I think that the Eagles were a case for that on both offense and defense from a statistical perspective and to another degree from a health perspective.
Yeah,
and every time you see a team get to the Super Bowl, it's almost always because they're a healthy team.
Mm-hmm.
Not exclusively, but the ones that win are generally the healthiest teams. You're going to see regression eventually.
Seeing that in Jacksonville as well. They were actually, I think, the healthiest team in the league last year in terms of players that spent time on IR. They've taken a step back both in terms of health and then just overall performance. The Calvin Ridley thing has been confounding to me. He came out the first half of the first game, and I was like, I was a round and a half too low on Calvin Ridley this year. And ever since then, it's just been there's been some missed plays and some drops and stuff, but not the consistent target volume that I anticipated. It's been much, much closer between him and Christian Kirk than I thought it would be after the first half of that first game.
Yeah, it's been much more game plan specific. No one throws to their first read more than Trevor Lawrence. And so you've seen a lot of it where they'll feature one receiver when they're playing a zone heavy team and then the other guy when they're facing a man heavy team. So it's really been almost a clear divide between when you're going to get a Ridley game and when you're going to get a Kirk game.
Where are you guys at on Trevor Lawrence? I've got a guy that I talk to about football quite a bit. He doesn't say he's terrible or anything, but he brings up stuff like, he's got more fumbles than anybody in the league. He's been really bad over the last couple of years in terms of the fumbles, and then he's been really bad in like game-winning situations and game-winning drives. And he feels like he's been anointed too early, but he's also a Titans fan who can't stand the Jaguars, so he's not the most objective commentary on Trevor Lawrence. So what do you guys think about him? I'm a centrist on Trevor Lawrence. I respect the arm talent. I think he's got a ton of it. He doesn't stand out to me in the way that Lamar does, a Burrow does, Allen does, or a Herbert does, though.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. That's pretty much it. You see the flashes, you see the arm talent, you see him make throws that 95% of NFL quarterbacks can't make, and then you see the other bad flashes, and you wonder what the hell's going on. But yeah, I think probably somewhere in the middle is where he's at least right now. There's still room to develop. He's still young, but this is also a guy who started and went to a national championship, as a true freshman in college. So it's not like he hasn't had a lot of game experience. Some of the game management stuff has been troubling.
I think he's Dak Prescott with probably slightly better arm. I
really thought you were going to say Dak Prescott with better hair. I would have swore.
I thought the long hair was coming. I really did.
I don't. The hair's fine,
especially from someone who rocked long hair for the.
I did have long hair. Look, my hair was better than Trevor Lawrence's.
10 years that I knew you.
My hair looked better than Trevor Lawrence's. Let's leave it at that.
Yeah, the thing that bothers me with him, and you really saw this against the Chargers last year, and Ryan mentioned the first read stat. He's also really bad about he doesn't throw the ball short left ever. If you watch him,
Like
like
at
in
the
the
heat map.
Chargers game, yeah,
Mhm.
like in the Chargers game last year, it was mind-boggling how little he threw the ball short and to the left. Like no out routes, no curl routes, no slant short to the left. Deep left, yeah. Like go route down the sideline, crosser that ends up there. Yes. He threw a touchdown to Christian Kirk on a deep crosser. But he doesn't look left very much. And it guys like that bother me. I wanna like if the first read's not there, I really want to see them flip their head and make it to the backside of whatever the play design is. That's something obviously that Mahomes does as
Yeah.
good as anybody, even if he doesn't cut it loose. Because I've watched a lot of all 22 of Mahomes this year trying to figure out who the receiver is to own in that offense. And he's not
None of
cutting
them.
it. Yeah. Well, yeah. I think it's Rasheed Rice, but
Yeah.
we'll leave
The
that. We'll leave
consensus
that for
seems to
another
be that
day.
Rice is going to be the guy.
Yeah, he beats zone coverage a lot, and whether that's a play scheme, play design thing, or a him thing, I don't know. And from a fantasy perspective, especially in redraft, I don't really care. I just want the guy that Mahomes is going to throw the ball to, and he does not trust Sky Moore at all. Does not trust that guy. He will not let it rip into tight windows to Sky Moore over the middle of the field, and those are intermediate over the middle of the field targets are probably the most valuable targets in football, I would say, for goal line targets. They're not short and getting tackled immediately. They're not deep balls down the field that have a really low completion probability. They're super valuable. You see A.J. Brown live on those. CD at his best is winning on those. Jamar to a lesser extent. Keenan Allen, they eat people up a little deeper, 10 to 15 yards over the middle of the field. They eat people up.
And that's where Sky Moore really won when he was in college, right? That was his prospect profile coming out.
Yep.
That intermediate area was where he dominated. So I really thought he was going to be a good fit. I was way too high on Sky Moore when he came out because I thought that
I did too.
I thought that skill set was going to fit perfectly with what they needed in that offense, and it just hasn't come to fruition.
There's one that I was right on when I was out on the guy.
Yeah, that's fair.
Scott Moore.
But I also liked him before he went to the Chiefs.
you
Then he went
did.
to the Chiefs and he got
very
hyped.
true.
That's the same thing with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I loved him, and then he went to the Chiefs and he became the 101 for crazy people.
Like me. I was taking him in the first round of redraft leagues that year, so don't feel bad. Lost a lot of leagues courtesy of CEH that year.
At least it wasn't Dynasty and it didn't haunt you for years and years.
No. Yeah, exactly.
At least
No,
you can wipe the slate clean.
Excuse
took
me.
that guy
He's
with the
still
10th
on my
overall pick.
roster, guys.
Still, yeah, I know because James, he traded him to you. You're the one that bought that sucker back.
That was the sucker. Yeah. That was
Yeah.
a relatively inexpensive trade, at least.
Yeah, I think it was just
No, that was not expensive.
like a pick swap, right?
Yeah, pick swap. I
Maybe
traded
another
down,
pick.
I think, 10 spots or something like that in the second round. That wasn't like.
I made so many deals so quickly.
I mean, you also traded. I think it was Mitchell. We did 2 swaps that year. I traded down for Mitchell and then down again for Clyde. Clearly, those have worked out very well for my team, which is why they're still on my team, and I am now selling everyone.
Yeah, you sent me. I think
It was
you
the
sent me a
110 and the
first.
210, I think.
That's what it was. Yep. And then I went from 110 to like 105 or something like that, and got one of Traylon. I think I got Traylon with the 105. I ended up with the 103
That's
and the
about right.
105, and I took Traylon with the 105, which I was excited to do. I think I passed on Garrett Wilson there, so that's not great. Not great. And then
No, we
ended
all
up
make
trading him
mistakes.
anyways. Yeah, I ended up trading him anyways for Kelsey, trading that pick, Traylon, for Kelsey anyways, so it didn't really
Worked out pretty
wind
well.
up mattering. Yeah, it doesn't hurt as bad to know that I traded Garrett Wilson for Kelsey. Now I can just say I traded Traylon Burks for Kelsey. I look like a genius.
All right, so I want to. Well, we got a little up for a second. I want to get a couple questions in that we've asked.
I know we
that
haven't done any interview.
Yeah. I want to get a couple things in. So the first thing is you don't have a league themed team name. So I have to ask about your either knowledge or lack thereof of Seinfeld.
I have literally never watched 10 seconds of Seinfeld. I don't know the intro song. I don't know any character other than Jerry Seinfeld. Like, I couldn't come up with a reference to Seinfeld if you had a gun to my head. I know nothing about that show. I'm not taking a stand. I am just completely ignorant.
That's great.
Who let this guy in the league? Come on.
Yeah. Bruno, we already covered that.
I see.
Yeah, it's Bruno's fault, man.
I say this as someone who's watched maybe like a handful of episodes. I can count on one hand the amount of episodes I've seen of Seinfeld.
So you gotta go find someone in your life who knows Seinfeld and get them to name your team.
I'll do my best, man, but I don't have a very big social circle. I'm gonna have to start asking people. I've got a golf trip. Can't play golf at all, so don't think I'm a golfer, but got a golf trip Friday for a buddy's bachelor party. So I'm sure some of those guys
I
have
guarantee
watched
you can
Seinfeld.
get someone there to give you a Seinfeld team name.
By the time Friday ends, I will have a Seinfeld team name.
Oh, there we go. See, I don't even care if you watch it or not. I just want the league to look like it matches.
Then we can get you a fancy sounder.
Yeah, that's
There
true.
we go.
And the other one I want to ask you is, how long have you played fantasy? What was your start in fantasy sports of any kind, be it football or if you started in another sport?
Football for sure. I was 18, so 12 years ago. Joined a fantasy football league with some of my buddies from high school. I did not understand the scoring. It was a regular ESPN league, like not standard, but like non-PPR, not half PPR, standard scoring, no decimal scoring. I took Jimmy Graham in the first round.
All right.
So this was the year after he scored all the touchdowns with Drew Brees. Had no good reason for that other than the guy scored a lot of touchdowns.
Let me look at last year's points and draft like
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
That's how everyone does it
Exactly.
when they're new. It's this.
Yeah.
Everybody does the
Yeah.
same thing.
Nothing changes year to year, right?
And then my trading chops started early. I drafted Emmanuel Sanders in the third round, drafted like Antonio Brown. This was pre-AB. This was AB's first 101 year, for context. Our first wide receiver 1 year. So I drafted that guy later on. I ended up trading Sanders and something else for Le'Veon Bell his rookie year. I loved Le'Veon Bell. He's my favorite player in football for 4 years. I loved watching Le'Veon Bell play football. So I ended up winning the league with Matt Ryan, that was the Shanahan years with Matt Ryan. So he threw for like 5,000 yards and 40 touchdowns. Le'Veon Bell, Antonio Brown, and I very hurt and beat up Jimmy Graham, but I ended up winning the league that year, and I was hooked, y'all. I mean, this league was like $20 to buy into, and I was like locked in on Sundays. I watched every snap. I just an insane person. So yeah, that's how I got my start.
Welcome to the club.
Yeah, and my wife hates it. I've had to address, like, I'm a control freak. That's why I pay so close of attention. That's all it is. I'm a control freak. I try to control every variable when it comes to my fantasy football leagues. And I'm still stupid enough to think that, preparation and process and being good or bad at it is what dictates wins. But a lot of times it's just pure dumbass luck. And I get enraged when I lose, especially in a redraft league, to people that I know are not paying attention.
That's the
So
worst.
I've had to
worst.
I've had to work. I've had to work on that, and I have this year. I haven't wanted to throw a remote through the TV one time.
Now, have you worked on that by beating everyone or by?
No,
Not
absolutely
losing anymore.
not. No, it gets to the point where, like, I'm in so many leagues now. Like, if I'm losing to somebody because a player's having a big game, I probably have said player somewhere else. So it's hard to have too much emotional investment into it. And what you end up doing is just caring more about one league or the other for no reason other than, maybe one league somebody talks shit more than the other one. So you just pay more attention to it.
You want JMC active in the chat as he is in my DMs? then you need to start talking shit to him.
No, you don't have to, because I'll never read it. I have notifications off on Sleeper. This is how much of a fanatic I am, y'all. I never have my notifications for Sleeper on, and I still check it. Like, I probably check it once every 2 hours for no reason. Nobody's going to send me any trades, so there's no reason to look.
Except for me.
Yeah, except for y'all. Y'all are the only people I hear from. In any league, y'all are the only people I hear from. But I still check it every 2 hours. Like, I go through and set my lineup on Monday nights as the games are ending for the next week. I'm a fanatic.
And this one's
It's
best
bad.
balls. You don't even have to set a lineup for this league.
And I do it anyways. I just want to see what the projections look like. I'm a nerd. I pay attention to projections because I play daily fantasy, and obviously redraft, it really matters week to week, like how your team's projecting.
Yep.
So I always like to look.
I always set my redraft lineup whenever I go through my first, oh man, I'm definitely losing this week, which is usually during the 1 o'clock games. I'll just go and start setting my lineup for next week.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. All right, guys. I'll let y'all have the rest of your night. We'll do this again if y'all want to have me. Sorry for hijacking the podcast. I love talking about football, so
that's the whole point of it.
I will holler at you guys later. Y'all have a good one.
Yeah,
you
as
too.
well. Appreciate your time.